her, yeah.
All attached to me.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And just a heads up, we put on the website, we put on the consultation form, we began recording sessions and consultations. It's helped out a lot with COVID.
Yeah.
But now we're doing hands-free dog training.
Okay.
You know, it shows people that what we do works, even though we're not touching the dog.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, I didn't get a chance to read this consultation form, but I'm assuming you're doing some kind of training, because I say you say yes, and then you give treats.
Yes. So we got him at the start of quarantine, so we've had him for 3 months now.
Okay.
We took him to Canine University to do like the puppy class. And he knows like sit, down, shake, all of that. The recall is the main reason why we took him there. So we are incorporating some of that stuff that we learned, like the yes and like just some of the other stuff, I think. And like we do, like when he sits down, we do like good for like a constant.
Oh, wow.
And then like slowly back away for him to start learning stay, which he's getting better at. But I think the biggest things are the recall. We take him to a play group every morning in the baseball fields with like Emmett and Jax, who you trained.
Oh, they're in Lincoln Park.
Yeah, and Marina. Yeah, and so he's there every morning, and 99% of the time he's great, and he'll kind of do big laps and he'll stay with everyone.
Sure.
The 1% he'll like take off and like we're by the road, like he could go anywhere. So that's kind of the 1% that we're hoping you can maybe help out with. And then he's been having some separation anxiety and like fear of stuff recently with like fireworks. Like he refuses to go outside with Brian after like noon. Like he'll just like because he heard like booms when he was with Brian outside.
Oh, sure.
So like I don't know if he's associating that, like we've had to like coax him out with like chicken, and it's been like a whole ordeal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I guess where we're at. Other than that, he's pretty chill. He jumps sometimes when he's excited. Other than that though, like he's a good leash walker. Like he's pretty relaxed. So.
Okay. It's funny because I actually saw Marina here like a week or two ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I was working with a client and she was just scrolling through and I saw her. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Marina. And she was like, hey.
I know. She always says like, yeah, Jax hated you at first, but now he like loves you. Every time he sees you, he's like so excited to see you.
Yeah. Because I'm the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
Okay, so pretty standard stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary here. So with Emmett and Jax, of course, they did remote collar.
Yeah.
With puppy training, what you're doing, the food stuff is fine. I usually stop at 6 months because it becomes pointless in my opinion.
Okay.
Because it's not reliable.
Okay.
Like you said, that 1%, like I don't want to gamble waving a piece of chicken hoping like he decides that the chicken's worth it.
Yeah.
Right? I want to make sure that even if he chooses not to respond, I can make him.
Yeah.
And that's where the collar comes in.
Yep.
Okay. So just a couple of things here. When it comes to like training tools, I don't like the word dog training because training implies like it ends at some point.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like with a human, you have a job and they're like, hey, we're going to promote you, but you need to do the 2-week training course. You do the course and you can just naturally apply those skills. Dogs don't do that.
It's gotta be constant.
Right? And it's not that you're always training. Like right now I saw you like calling him and saying yes when he came to you and feeding, right? Because that's actual training, right?
Yeah.
But it's more so just the reinforcing.
Yeah.
So if we teach Wallace a recall, and let's say it's awesome recall for like months, right? But then one day, I don't know, a goose just gets his attention, and he's like, I really want that goose, and you call him, he's like, no, I really want that goose.
Yeah.
Well, then you can make it happen because you have a tool that can enforce that.
And that's totally, and that's like what I think we need, because like it's just that 1%, and it's usually if like he's being chased by another dog and it's like really fun, or he's chasing another dog and like the other dog kind of circles back and he's just like, he'll look at us, he sees us like calling him, and he'll be like, no, not today. It's not having it.
Our worst incident was from us to probably I don't know, like that,
over there.
like green roof that's like pitched like this. Like he
sure.
ran with his friend Archie, and the scary part was they ran to, like he's a good swimmer, but they ran right up to like a canal, and so like what if a scenario where
like it just like
where we're chasing after them, like Archie fell in, he didn't go in, but like what if something happened and they couldn't get out? Like,
That's right.
so that was scary, and like I was calm and he just
didn't even care.
Yeah. So, and that's what I tell people, because in the dog training world, there's a lot of drama.
Yeah.
You have trainers like myself that are realistic and know that things like that happen. Then you have other trainers that live in this fantasy world that like nothing bad ever happens, you know, and then food fixes everything. And it's like, no, it's not how life works.
No.
Maria and I had a kind of instance like that. Hers wasn't like to that degree, but I remember, I think she was at the beach with Jax, and he took off, and there's like a little fence that you can hop over, and you hop over that fence. And she was like, I know that it wasn't anything dangerous, but I did not like the feeling that he was not going to return me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. And I don't know if they told you about Emmett and the coyote.
Yeah, we saw that,
Yeah.
But yeah, when I asked him about it, and he was like, yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah, you know, crazy shit happens.
Yeah.
And yes, it is very rare, you know, but you don't know if you're going to be in that 1%, you know, and I hope that you're not. But that's what I train for. Because I train for realistic scenarios. Because when you need your obedience to absolutely function, no questions asked, isn't a scenario like that.
Yeah.
You know, running towards the street, you know, running towards a canal, you know, coyote.
Yeah.
You know, actually, he's not the first person to get confronted by a coyote either.
Really? I mean, we've seen it a couple times. Like, you saw it in person when thankfully he was on leash.
I saw one during a training session actually over here, in Lakeview.
Oh.
We were training, and it was literally like where like that tree is right there. So what is it, like 50 feet? Coyote. Hey, we're just like looking like this is crazy. It was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and this is wandering around. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So, so e-collar is the only tool, in my opinion, that one gives us off-leash level obedience.
Yeah.
But also, you know, he is a living creature. He can decide to opt not to do things.
Yeah.
What allows you to make him do it.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the most common questions that I ask is like, you know, when does the e-collar go away? I'm sure you've seen Jax and Emmett with their e-collars on.
Yeah. Yep.
So in my book, when you need it, it doesn't. Okay. And then people will comment like, Jesse, you're such a great trainer. Then why is that the case? I'm like, all right, well, this is the humans, right? You guys driving the expressway?
Yeah.
Or you driving the expressway, right? You go the speed limit?
Yeah.
Relatively.
Right? That's almost like 95% of the time people are like, right? I'm like, but if you see a squad car,
Yeah, slow
down, right?
Yeah.
Because as authority. So not even humans are 100% reliable in the laws that are in place. We're opportunistic, so we're dogs, right? So if I look at that collar as a cop on a collar, right? When it's present, he knows, okay, like I have to shape up, listen, all that stuff, because I know they have control.
Yeah.
But when that collar is off, he may become a gambler.
Okay.
You know, and you might see dogs on like YouTube or on TV that don't have any kind of gear, but they're doing really awesome, right?
Yeah.
But then I go look at the environment. A lot of times it's a very bland environment that's going on. Or two, you're looking at a professional trainer who's trained that dog since 2 months, thousands of hours, right? You guys aren't going to do that, right? You're not dog trainers. You're like, we want something that we can do that's easy and that's effective and reliable, right? So that's the other part of it. My dogs, I could take them, no e-collars, and they're like 80, 90% spot on, and I'll have a good recall. But I still, myself, personally don't like, what if something happened? Like a firework? My dogs hate fireworks. Right? And it's like, people, someone over there can set one off right now. Right? And you don't know it. So you're planning for, in case that happens, I'm not worried. I have it control. Okay? When we teach remote collar, the most common perception is layering it in as punishment. So what that means is, if I say Wallace sits and he doesn't respond, that you would punish him using the e-collar. That's wrong. That's actually the worst way to train. Okay? So growing up, I was raised old school. I was spanked. If my mom said, Jesse, if you don't complete your homework, I will spank you. I know if I didn't do my homework and I did get spanked, I can relate that to that statement she said earlier that day. Hey, dogs don't do that. He doesn't think like, oh crap, you said sit and I ignored it. That's why I'm being punished. It just comes out the blue for him. Okay? So what we do is we use pressure work. So have you ever seen someone, or maybe you pulled up on the collar, pressed down on the butt to make a dog sit? That's pressure. It's physical pressure, right? So you're putting them into a sitting position. As soon as the dog sits, you let it go. If the dog gets up, you would do it again. The dog sits, you would let it go, right? So the dog learns every time I get up, you put this physical pressure, and as long as I do this, nothing happens, right? Very much the same with e-collar. So I shape everything from beginning to end through remote collar. So the dog, quote unquote, understands why it's happening. Okay, so it doesn't come as a surprise. So if I come to a stop, our dogs are trained to automatically sit. If they forget to sit, I just tap the button, the dog goes, oh yeah, cool. But it's not like, what the hell is that for?
Well, and are you tapping like the beep or the vibrate or the...
We use the stim.
Okay.
We always use stim.
Okay.
So the collars that we use have two functions. There's the vibrate function, there's the stim or the contractional function. Okay? Vibration is only good if I'm working with like a deaf dog and I need a means of communicating because I don't have words.
Yeah.
Or 2, to check if the collar is on.
Okay.
So like yesterday I had 2 clients who forgot to charge the recaller. Thankfully the class we didn't really need it so much, but I could tell right away that it wasn't working. I'm like, grab your box. And they grabbed it and my kid vibrate. They're like, nothing's happening. I'm like, something's wrong, right? Other than that, I don't use it for warnings.
Okay.
Warnings will kill your dog, okay? Because most people, Wallace, come, vibrate, and shock you, right?
Yeah.
Then the zap.
Yeah.
That's the delay now. So now if you create a 3 to 5 second delay, it only takes 3 to 5 seconds to get on the street, right? I want, when I call you, turn on that dime, come right back to me.
Yeah.
So by always kicking in with the stem, the dog thinks the only way to beat the stem is to be quick.
So there's no warning. So there's no like, oh, it's only a beep. I'm not going to listen to it. It's like,
Yeah, you listen, right? And it's not harsh.
Yeah.
It's not mean, right? The dogs don't perceive it that way. He just thinks as soon as I hear Wallace come, it's gonna kick in. Wallace come tap.
Yeah.
Very quick. So he's thinking the faster I move, I can beat that tap.
Got it.
Okay, so it motivates the dog. So I look at it as that as a motivator because of the way I apply it. But when you reluctantly apply it, it becomes more so a punisher.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're creating gaps.
Got it. Yep. Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yep.
So, you know, if he learns like, hey, they say come twice, then vibrate before I'm gonna get that stem,
Oh, no,
the
it's
dog's
always-
gonna keep going.
Yeah.
They're gonna wait for that vibrate to happen or wait just after before they respond because they know there's a delay.
Got
okay?
it. Yep,
So
that
we don't
makes
delay
sense.
that stuff.
Okay.
I don't know why a lot of trainers train that way. I understand why the average dog owner would think that way because they care and they're
Like,
not wanting to
just
harm their
come
dog.
on, you know, like, yeah.
But trainers, I'm like, this makes no sense to me in a realistic scenario. I want immediate response, okay? Because if he's chasing the squirrel, he's in prey drive, and he's so focused on that squirrel, if there's nothing to cut right in and say, break off, he's gonna keep going.
Yeah.
As long as it's a delay, it allows the brain to keep going within that mindset.
Yeah.
So I wanna make sure that whatever I say cuts through,
Yeah.
and he's like, that's always my main priority.
Yeah. No, I mean, we see it like with Jackson Emmett. Like if Emmett's like going somewhere, it's like come, and as soon as like he says it, Emmett's like back at his feet. Like it's great. Yeah.
So, you know, I'm pretty strict in my obedience, but there's a reason,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want to ever, you know, I don't want anybody ever contacting me and saying, Jesse, I called my dog and it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we didn't like have him in the park in the morning and we had him on leash all the time, or like whenever he's like off leash with just us in the park and there's no other dogs, like great recall always comes, yada yada. But like we want him to have the freedom to go play and do, you know. So like, yeah, I think, I don't. There's not really an option. I feel like we need it. So
When it comes to obedience stuff,
leave it.
there's like the trifecta of things that I think every dog owner should, for the most part, know. Recall is always number one.
Yeah.
The second is heel. Now I know you mentioned that he's a fairly good walker,
Yeah.
right? But your interpretation of good and my interpretation of good are really
He doesn't pull. That's
Yes.
my interpretation of
Sure,
good.
sure.
But he definitely is like behind us and like
Sure.
all over the place. But yeah.
So you'll want a nice tight heel. You need that for the recall. Okay, because like the way I approach training is I teach what you need and what you want.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't teach stuff that you're not going to use unless we end up like with extra time. All right, well, what else do you want to learn, right?
Yeah.
So those two are always the most important commands. And then the last one is like a stationary, which is like, you know, lay down, don't move while we have brunch. Okay, so then you're not worried about all this while you're trying to enjoy the meal.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions so far?
No, I think it all makes sense.
Yeah,
to me.
I think my biggest question, and I'm sure you'll answer it,
Yep.
with the e-collar is like, is there a possibility of like a change in behavior from like,
Sure.
like being like, you know, very
Personality
happy-go-lucky
change.
to like kind of like, yeah, a personality change. Like
Right,
that's
right.
like my biggest fear with it.
Sure.
But I don't know.
No. In the beginning, it's not uncommon to see mopiness, or what people call depression, and it's because of discipline. Right? Like, I didn't walk away smiling from spanking.
Yeah,
Right? Unless
right.
you're like, or let's say this or something.
Yeah.
But what happened was, I matured and I understood right from wrong. Like, it didn't, like, I wasn't like that anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I was like, if I don't do anything bad, I don't get a consequence.
Right.
The same thing for the dog. In the beginning, because we're teaching everything and there's a lot of discipline, you might see a slight shift. It's not permanent. It's just he's gonna be a bit more cautious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? He's gonna be like, oh man, there's like rules now, and there's this thing I don't like, right? And he's got to figure out how does this work.
Yeah.
So as you go about life with him, and because you're gonna balance everything out in the sense that you walk him, take him to go play with Jax and Emmett. You might do actually more stuff with him and get more involved with him in your life because you have more control as he starts to open up. Because as long as I come when they call me, and when I walk on their side when they say heel, and I lay down and don't move when they say down, nothing happens.
Yeah.
The dog relaxes.
Yeah.
So it's not a personality shift, so to speak, or so it is like an emotional reaction to the discipline. Okay. The more you use it, the faster he recovers.
Okay.
Most people use a sparing move. Okay, they're like, I'm only going to use it when the dog's not listening.
Right.
I'm only going to use it when the dog's actively pulling me because it validates for them because they feel bad, right? But that's what actually keeps the dog in that bubble because it's very limited, right? But if it's every little thing, tap, 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 the dog just goes, man, this is all the time, and they get exposed to it more frequently, then they recover faster. Okay, now every dog is different. I believe Emmett actually was more on the, it took longer for him to recover.
Yeah.
Okay, Jax was like it for a couple of weeks, but then he recovered shortly after that.
Yeah.
You know, but it all comes down to application.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen a dog get worse, and I'm known for aggression. I do highly aggressive dogs, and there's like stuff like e-collar makes dogs more aggressive, and it's not that it makes them more aggressive; it's that it's not enough to shut down the aggression, so they need more power. You know, so once you work through that, and you see it, you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense, right? In this kind of case, this is real standard stuff. The only thing I would project is a little bit of mopiness, but as long as you're not, oh, good, like it's time for the collar, right? Because then he's like, well, if you don't like it, then I don't like it, you know?
Right.
You know, it's like if someone's like, hey, did you see that movie? You're like, you know, like right off the bat, they're like, oh, you didn't like the movie.
Yeah.
So you're setting off that impression.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So as long as you're upbeat, and you can always incorporate food. I'm not against using food to help, but I'm not relying on it creating reliable obedience.
Okay.
Right? Because I know at some point something's going to get his attention, and you're not going to be able to break through. Right?
Yeah. I mean, at first in the morning we were trying every high value treat we could find. Eventually we landed on hot dogs. So now he gets like a third of a hot dog every single morning. And most of the time it's fine, and then there's just, you know, can't like be like, Wallace, like what?
Right.
Like,
yeah. And for remote, we don't have to use food. We can incorporate it, but almost all my cases are no food. Okay, and it's the same level of reliability as it would be if it was with food. The only thing food does is it can help the dog recover faster or learn the skill a little bit faster. Okay, because now there's a positive involved.
Yeah.
But you guys again aren't dog trainers. I want something simple that the owner can replicate, that'll get them the results, so that when they go, they're like, holy crap, this works. Like, because we train here.
Yeah.
As you can see, Oz is not a bland environment, right?
Yeah.
And when we get clients that have previous trainers, they're like, yeah, we were in this quiet room behind blinders because our dog couldn't look at other dogs.
Right.
Then we went out in the real world and it was like crazy
There's
chaos.
everything, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, we're right here. We make it work, you know? So right off the bat, if you can get your dog to listen here, back over at Lincoln Park and stuff should not be a problem.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Any questions about that stuff?
No, I think it's good.
In terms of length of time and stuff, it really seems that recalls, number one, we need heel for recall. Anything else, if you could teach it or could have it, would you want?
Stay.
Okay, like don't move.
Yeah, he's not good at stay, yeah. And then I think, I mean, like the no jumping, that's like, we know what we need to, like, we know, like, ignore him, don't no talk, no like eye contact and stuff when we come in the room, like, but like, when he gets excited, he's just like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, my biggest fear is like, you know, we got old grandparents, like
For
sure.
92 and
I don't want him jumping on that.
75-pound dog that jumps on.
But then other than that, I feel like everything else, like, those are the big ones that we need. And then maybe if you have any ideas for him to go outside with Brian and not afraid.
The jumping and that are easy. Okay? So that's not even going to take, that can be like a 5 minute.
Okay.
Because of e-collar.
Yeah.
I actually just have a dog that did a consultation with that wouldn't leave the collar. Okay. And then she's like, you know, how do I fix this? I'm like, I can explain it to you, but trust me, it's like a 5 minute problem.
Good, because it's been literally like us having boiled chicken. Take a step.
Yeah,
Take
he
a
would
step.
like only
Come on.
come
He would
if
just
I
like
sat
put
down.
on the brakes and like it was awful.
it would take on average, I'd say,
like 20 minutes to get outside.
yeah.
No.
So that's been so frustrating.
It'll
But,
be
like,
super easy.
okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'll now explain how all this process works in time.
Okay.
You're right at the 6-week range. That's
Okay.
1 day a week for an hour.
Okay, cool.
Because of COVID, we've added in 2 Zoom lessons.
Cool.
So you're really getting 8 hours of work for the same price of what it was prior.
Okay.
Because now everything is verbal instruction, that in case if you have any questions, we can handle that over Zoom. So we take advantage of the in-person stuff.
Okay, cool.
Because there's only things that we can teach like this.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So the healing exercise is going to be the foundation for that door thing. Okay. I would assume by the second class, after you've wrapped up the second class, we're going to tackle that and you have it done with the third. Okay. So we start off with heal first because it sets the foundation for everything. So if you pop an e-collar on a dog and you just remote them, more often than not, they're going to move away, and if anything, run away. Okay, because the dog's first instinct is flight. So we want to teach the dog never to run away, to actually run to the owner instead. So we use a heel, which directs the dog to the owner and to follow the owner in terms of how the e-collar turns on and how it turns off. Okay, that's usually 2 classes. The first class is teaching the dog to follow the owner. The second class is teaching the owner how to use their leg movements and body language to communicate with the dog when you're turning, when you're stopping, and all that other stuff. Okay. And I'll give you a quick rundown of like how we would handle the door thing, and then come back. Week 3, how's everything going? This is going great. Awesome. Let's start working on recall. Okay. Recall is about 2 classes. There's 2 parts to it, and it's the command that takes the longest to teach. Okay. Now for you guys, it might actually be easier because are you right across the boulevard, that big open area there?
Yeah, we're our like back door opens up onto
Clark, and then like there's like that middle area
We're right
between
next to
Clark
our
and
UT.
Stockton. So like it takes us to get to the park. Once we
Like
leave our
30
building,
seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So right
So it's
there.
very convenient for you that
Yeah.
you're right in front of an open space.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
Because for most of my clients, they have to like get in the car,
Go there,
to the
yeah.
park, rain practice.
Yeah,
So
we're
you
right
guys
there.
should be pretty good with that stuff.
Yeah.
So recall, we start that by class 3, and then you practice it. Okay. Now the one thing about recall is, since we're putting rules to things, you might start to see a little bit of hesitancy, right? Where he may not want to just take off. So it's bad in the sense of like, oh, but I want my dog to enjoy freedom. But that's the precursor to your dog not running away. Okay. It just means you have to spend more time getting him comfortable to relax to practice your recall stuff. But again, you're right in front of the big open grass area there that you guys will be fine with that. Okay. So that's typically 2 classes. How's everything going? Jesse, it's going great. What else can we learn? I go, you wanted to learn to stay. So we'll work on a stationary thing, right? There's 3 types. There's sit, down, and place. If we know we're going to use any command longer than 5 minutes, then we will teach the down or the place command. That's typically a class. And then class 6 can be either a review or if you want to learn something else. If you have any things that you're struggling with, that's what I would use it for. And then the Zoom sessions could be for any questions that you may have. Or maybe if you want to learn more obedience, there's stuff that I can teach over Zoom that's very simple. Okay. But I prioritize what you're wanting first. Don't expect by the end of the 6 weeks that the recall is going to be 100%. Okay. It takes time to practice it, but you have the tool set to get it there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, like when we worked with Emmett, they did my 12-week program for a full off-leash, reliability, and then there was a bit of practice after that, and then they took off the leash, and then Emmett was off-leash reliable.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as they cross the street, Emmett's off leash the whole time. Like,
And it's like
he'll like cross the other streets. Yeah, like he's
really like
he's like the perfectly trained
really good.
dog. Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. No, they did their homework. You see lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like also whenever he sees another dog while walking, he'll
So
lay
crouch
down.
down and then just not move.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the jumping up eagles is easy. The couching with these dogs is easy. Not going to threshold is easy. So behavior is simpler because for most part it's just don't do that. Right? Like just don't jump on people. So like I mentioned earlier, I was raised old school. I was spanked for stuff. So it's the same thing for dogs. So if he did something that a dog did not appreciate and wanted him to stop, they would bite him.
Yeah.
It's just consequence. Don't do that to me, right?
Yeah.
So same thing. An e-collar serves as both a teaching tool, but also a tool to correct behaviors and to dissuade the dog from performing behavior, like jumping.
Yeah.
Okay. The walking in the home, I think you said he jumps on you, and the ignoring and turning around, that actually teaches them to keep doing. Okay.
Great.
So what's that saying, like silence is approval or something?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're not saying anything and you're ignoring, you're essentially approving the behavior, right?
Okay.
So if he jumped on another dog and they didn't like it, they bite him.
Right.
They don't sit there and like ignore it.
Right.
You know, some will walk away, but that's more personality type, right?
Yeah.
But when you're proactively trying to stop something, you correct it.
Yeah.
So if a dog jumps on me, I just knee him, right?
Got it.
And then I'm like, don't jump on me.
Yeah.
I never give up my space by moving back because now the dog's taking my space.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm always anchored. If the dog jumps on me, I'll do a correction and then hold my ground. And I'll keep doing that. And you might get a hit. And then he'll look at you and go, crap, what was that for, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you're jumping on me.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, I learned my lesson. I won't jump on you. But that only pertains to you, right? So obviously it's not on your guest to knee him when he comes in. Then you can use the e-collar to correct them for other things like that. Or he's thinking about jumping on someone. If he's at the dog park or something and he's annoying a dog and you want to stop him, prevent it from happening, you can use the remote to dissuade him. And not so much recall him, but to teach him like, leave that dog alone. Okay? Because you're just nipping at him saying like, don't do that right now. And he leaves the dog alone, but he's still playing. Okay? So e-collar gives you a lot of nuances and it's very easy to learn. It's very simple, pretty straightforward. I've been using it for 10 years. And it's the reason why I'm able to still train people and their dogs and get reliable obedience simply through verbal instruction. Because the exercises are very simple. Okay? Once you get over the first class, which is like the hardest one, it just makes complete sense. Okay? Questions?
Quick question. So when we're like inside and he doesn't have the e-collar on, and like,
Sure.
So like, and then we're trying to get him to do something. He's like sniffing the table or whatever. What do we do then? Or like, should we just keep the e-collar on him for a long, like inside too? Or like?
Right. So like, let's say you're gonna eat dinner.
Yeah.
You want to get off the side?
Oh yeah.
That
It's
just-
like it keeps going up, and I'm like, oh. Thanks.
So, let's say begging at the table.
Yeah.
Okay. A trainer might tell you, well, if you put your dog on place, your dog cannot beg at the table. But that requires you to teach place and then like make it applicable to when you eat dinner. And I just want to eat dinner. Just correct behavior. There's no need to teach the skill. It's just don't beg when we're eating. Don't set the table when there's food up. Don't counter serve. Don't jump on the couch. Don't jump on the bed without permission. Don't rush out the front door. Right? It's just aversive to stop the behavior. You could use remote, but what I would do is actually go over other methods of correction. So within the home, you're not reliant on the remote.
Yeah.
Okay? Because in the house, people really don't need their dog to do much unless like a guest is coming over.
Right.
Then it's like, well, our dog gets really excited when people come over. And then I have an exercise to de-escalate them. Or you could use technically obedience. Yes, we would incorporate e-collar, most likely, but because there's something out of the ordinary happening. You have a guest coming over, right? But if it's just you three, like there really shouldn't be a need for the dog to be collared up, unless like I get dogs that are aggressive to the owners. That's different, right? Because the problem now within the home. Cases like this, it's super simple. When it comes to obedience within the home, unless the owner actually needs it, like they'll say like, Jesse, when I call my dog in the house, like they don't come right away. And I'll tell them, well, how are they outside of the park? They're like, amazing. I'm like, well, that's what I care about. Right? If you want your dog to be good in the house, you technically have to then practice it in the house and apply it in the house, right? So like my pit, amazing, super fast recall. I call her and she's a speedy tank, right? At the home, I'm like, come on, Lex, let's go for a walk. And she's on the couch, she's like wagging her tail, right? She's like looking at me like, no. I'm like, come on, let's go for a walk, right? And she'll eventually get up and she'll stretch and take her sweet ass time. And I'll leash her up, but I don't care because I know when we're outside in a realistic setting, she is spot on, right? So
I mean, that's what it matters, honestly.
Yeah. So, but if you want that, it's not to say you can't have it. It just means you have to practice in the home. Because most people only practice outside. And it doesn't just immediately transfer to another scenario. You would then have to make that a part of your training routine to get it to be just as good. Okay?
Cool.
Other questions?
I think I covered all of mine, honestly.
Yeah.
Do you have any more?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you covered everything we had.
So in terms of like cost of time, it's 6 classes, but you get the 2 Zooms, so technically 8 hours worth of work.
Yep.
And we meet here. So it's a great environment. For the 6 weeks, it's $825. Part of your fee does get credited towards that program.
Cool.
The collar that he would need would most likely be the dog for $2,300.
Okay.
And we'll send out all this information to you.
Cool.
It runs about $287 with tax. It's pricey, but it'll last you a very long time.
Is it waterproof?
Yes.
Cool.
It's fully waterproof, 3/4 mile range.
Nice. Okay.
Rechargeable lithium battery, so you don't have to go buy batteries all the time.
Yeah.
The most common thing that does happen is the battery does wear out after years.
Okay.
And they're like $15, $20. You go buy it online, you open up your collar, you replace it, boom, good as new. Okay. I've had mine 8 years, no issues. So it's an investment, but it will last you. Okay. In terms of scheduling, Maria handles all that stuff.
Okay.
And start date. I know. I believe like Saturdays and Sundays are for the most part booked up, but we open up Fridays and we open up Mondays as well.
Okay,
So I'm slowly opening up my schedule because I have a facility in Logan Square.
Yeah.
So because COVID slowed things down a lot, I'm like torn between doing stuff in my facility, but also trying to rebuild my private training.
Yeah.
Clients.
Yeah.
We train rain, sleet, or snow.
Okay.
So we just leave it up to the client.
Okay, cool.
I think here. The only other thing that you would need is a 30-foot long leash,
Okay.
which
Well, I think ours is 20 feet.
you can use a 20-footer.
Okay.
If you have another like leash like this, then
Oh, we can just tie it. Yeah.
yeah, we can make it a little bit longer. 30 feet is more realistic and it gives you some wiggle room. 20 feet tends to be a little bit too close.
Okay.
But you won't need that to the 3rd class.
Okay.
And then, as long as you guys are doing your homework, I just keep teaching stuff. I don't limit things to the length of time.
Okay.
Of course, I can only take you as far as you're willing to go.
Yeah.
So maybe this guy's a tough guy and he needs 95 as a number, because personality and size doesn't matter. If you're not doing 95, you're not going to listen. Okay? I don't predict that, but you have to be prepared to go to the extent needed to make your obedience reliable. Okay? And other than that, this should be pretty straightforward. I think you got a good pup. You seem pretty mild mannered.
Yeah, he's pretty chill most of the time, so.
Yeah. So it should be pretty straightforward.
Cool.
Okay?
Yeah, no, this is
Another thing, I mean, obviously this is like, it can come up in a class, but like he is super, like if another dog has a stick, that's his, like he'll go up and like kind of not hit the dog, but like fuck them out of the way and like nip at the stick in their mouth and try and get it. Yeah. And I don't know if that's like a bad behavior or not.
I would
but,
say that's just like him playing. I would say there are some times when he has a stick and like another dog tries to come up and he'll do a little bit, but.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing because in the first instance he's playing, but you don't know how that dog's going to take it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
'Cause some dogs will initiate a fight over it, right?
Yeah.
We can use collar to stop that. Okay. Anything that we just need to stop is easy. It's just don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care what you're doing, just don't do that.
Yeah.
When it comes to resource guarding, that's something I always suggest you be a step ahead. So like if we know he guard sticks or balls or anything, is that when he's with dogs, either remove them or don't allow him to actually even get possession of them.
Yeah.
So if he goes to bite a stick and I'm remoting him, I'm like, you can't have sticks, then there's nothing to guard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because I know people tend to go by the dog they see today. It doesn't always mean the dog's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to be a step ahead. Right now, maybe you've only seen a couple of growls and kind of little bit of nips in terms of like they back away. Doesn't mean it won't ever escalate.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like humans, like we change every day. Same thing for the dogs; they're constantly learning.
Yeah.
So like even if you train them and then you do everything and he's great, and you decide like, oh, he's so awesome, we don't need to reinforce stuff. He's gonna start learning, but you're not reinforcing it.
Right.
Then you untrain your dog.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to see what it looks like and stuff, go to my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's all uncut, unedited, and then you can see how we go about things. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Once you're all confirmed, I'll follow up with you with an email with some videos to watch, just to prep you for the lesson.
Okay.
So this way we're not wasting time about like setting up the call and all that. You can just come in.
Cool.
Okay.
Do we need I know the harness and stuff, that's normally when we go on longer walks, usually we just put them on the collar, but do we need any other another type of collar or anything? Or,
just a flat collar, your leash.
Okay.
The harnesses promote pulling.
Yeah.
People release them out of control. So after each train, I just you'll get rid of it.
Okay.
I understand you can use it because of the pressure of the rope stuff, but if he's in a nice tight heel, you know,
Yeah, you won't be pulling anything. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, this is great. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure meeting you guys. You can tell everybody I said hi.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, I haven't seen Emmett in a while. Yeah, I haven't ran into him, but I've had a couple of clients that were referred to me.
Yeah, I mean, they talk wonderful things all the time.
Yeah,
like,
he lives in the building directly next to us.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, we see them every morning. But yeah, I mean, Emmett's like, as soon as Wallace like had took off a couple times, we were like, wait, why is Emmett amazing? And he was like, well, it's Jesse. And then Marina's like, yeah, I took him there too, and like, he's great, and like, yeah.
Yeah, it was funny
So-
because Marina used to live, I think, like Gold Coast this area.
Yeah.
And then she moved into Lincoln Park. And then I saw Emmett, and they're like, hey, we just like ran into Jax, who's like a client. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, it's funny.
Yeah,
it's
no,
cool.
they're the best. Wallace loves Jax. Him and Jax like play so hard together.
Yeah.
And then Emmett is just like amazing. So
Yeah.
Emmett like does like the hot laps and gets everyone like worked up.
Sure.
And then he just goes and chills, and everyone else is like, but
No, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, give my
Yeah.
regards.
yeah.
If you guys have any questions, let us know.
Okay.
Otherwise, Maria will follow up with you, and
Perfect.
she'll fill you in on everything, and we'll get you started.
Cool.
Okay?
Yeah,
Awesome.
no, it sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
No, thank
so
you. Thank
much.
you.
You got all your